From the crack of dawn to the campfire at night. Whether you're in the woods, on the water, or just dreaming about your next adventure, you're in the right place. This is Tailgate Outdoors.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tailgate Outdoors. I'm Dan Casper, and a big thanks for joining us this morning. And on this episode of Tailgate Outdoors, we're going to be talking with Eric Lopez. He is the Director of Event Operations for B.A.S.S, or Bassmaster as you may know it. And we're talking with him this morning because going on right now in Crosse is the Pro Guide Batteries Bassmaster Elite tournament going on the Mississippi River. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one who thought about this at one point in time in their lives, but when I was a kid for a hot minute, I wanted to be a pro bass fisherman. I kept logs of the bass I caught, time of day, lures I used, water conditions, weather conditions, the whole 9 yards. That obviously didn't happen. But one thing I was curious about when it comes to these fishing tournaments that we see in Wisconsin, do these pro anglers have to follow some of the same rules that us normal anglers would have to? And what about weigh-ins too? So I asked our expert DNR warden, Jake Bolks.
Fishing tournaments are held to basically the same standards as any other fisherman. To answer the licensing part of it is yes, they have to have a license. So if they happen to be a Minnesota resident, they have to have their Minnesota. If they're a Wisconsin resident like Pat Schlapper, then they have to. I think he's still a Wisconsin resident. Then he has to have his Wisconsin fishing license. But if you're say you're from Georgia or Tennessee, then you can choose between whether you have a Minnesota one or a Wisconsin one. You don't have to have both. You just have to have one or the other. Okay.
So you don't need both. I know sometimes we've talked about it's tricky with like maybe the Mississippi River on what side you're on or such and trying to figure that out.
So with the river, the licenses are a little bit more ambidextrous is definitely the wrong word, but the license is you just have to have one. And again, like I mentioned, the law is if you're a Wisconsin resident, it's just your Wisconsin fishing license up to the first railroad track on the Minnesota side, and vice versa for Minnesota residents. It's the Minnesota license all the way up to the first railroad track on the Wisconsin side. You have to have your own state. You can't just have like a Minnesota one if you're a Wisconsin resident. It's weird, but that's the rules. It actually saves you money in the long run. Mm-hmm. But for other states, it says right in the rigs, if you're a non-resident out of state, you just need one of them because just like us, they only need to have one. They don't need to have two.
Gotcha.
But with those tournaments, like I said, we hold them to the same standard as any other fisherman. They have to follow the no-wake buoys. They have to take all the weeds off their trailers, dump the water from their live wells when they pull their boats out. All the same rules. There's a couple bass fishing tournament rules that allows them to like cull fish. So in Wisconsin, a lot of people don't know this, but in Wisconsin, if you catch a bass and you're going to keep it, or a walleye, or even a panfish, once you take possession of that fish and put it in your live well, that is your fish. You can't release it. Mm. So in the bass tournament, it's not just these big Bassmaster ones, but any one that people apply for in the state, you can actually cull the fish. So, if you have a 2-pound bass, catch a 3-pounder, you can throw back the 2-pounder as long as it's still alive and then keep the 3-pounder. So that's one of the few, very, very few exceptions that are allowed in these tournaments.
Okay. So like after the weigh-ins and such, do they have to keep them or can they throw them back into the water then? Do you know that?
Those can be released. Okay. And I know a lot of tournaments actually have big penalties, like 1, 2, 3-pound penalties if you bring in a dead fish or if a fish dies or you can't release it. So I know a lot of those guys run different methods in their live wells to try to keep those fish as healthy and as safe as possible when they're running across the lake. So they don't want, just like we don't want them to die, they don't want them to die.
Right, exactly. I got to imagine that place has got to be like a zoo. Like I just see the stuff on TV and online, like all the boat launches. You mentioned the wakes and such, but it's like a race to get to a spot for some of those guys too.
Oh, no, that's very accurate. It is like It's you get your position. It's like NASCAR. You get your position in line, and then once they say go, if you're that first boat, if you're the 14th boat, whatever, they speed as fast as they can, as far as they want to get to their first spot.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, like their first, like the spot they have the most faith in, they go right to that and try to beat anyone else to it to catch the big one right away.
Right.
But again, like we get plenty of complaints on it. We hold them accountable. I know, obviously, I don't work the river because we're up here.
Mm-hmm.
But I have some friends that are wardens down there, and I've heard plenty of stories how these guys, they'll fish too long and try to get to weigh in, because you have to be in at weigh in by your time, otherwise you're disqualified. And and there's been stories where some of these guys just run the no wakes and try to blame it on time limits, and it's like, nope, you should have stopped fishing earlier.
Mm-hmm.
You can't run through a slow no wake just like anyone else.
Interesting stuff, and a big thanks for Jake for answering those questions. So let's talk about this big Bassmaster tournament happening right now in La Crosse. Eric Lopez is going to be joining us coming up next. Joining us now is the Director of Event Operations for B.A.S.S, Eric Lopez. Eric, first off, a big thanks for joining us here this morning and chatting with us here in the Chippewa Valley.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's an honor.
Hey, can you just tell us a little bit about your role with B.A.S.S?
Sure. Like you said, I'm the Director of Operations Events. What that means is I oversee the non-fishing portions of this event, of the fishing tournament. So I work on the schedule with the team back in the office, and I coordinate getting the schedule together. I speak to all the cities, so I've been working with La Crosse for the past couple years, all the contracts. And then when you come to one of our Bassmaster Elite series, we have an event. All of our sponsors are there, set up, and there's things for fans to do. So my team oversees that, the expo, the security, the facility. So everything that basically takes place outside the actual competition portion of the event falls under my umbrella.
So can you give us a little peek behind the curtain, like what all goes into a setup for a tournament like the one that we're seeing in La Crosse, maybe from like the beginning to the conclusion to the final weigh-in?
Sure, absolutely. Well, like I alluded to a little bit ago, it starts about 2 years, a year and a half out. So right now we're working on the 2027 and 2028 schedules to have these conversations and making sure all the events are coordinated and we're not zigzagging everyone across the country. But we set up about 6 days ahead of time, and it's not a small fishing tournament by any means. I mean, this is a large production because we're live on Fox Sports, on FS1, so we have a very large television component as well. So we have to make sure we have our stage set up. We bring in our own DJ. We bring in a Jumbotron, our camera crews, and like I said, all the sponsors. So that takes days and days to get all that situated. So when people come out to our events, specifically on Saturday and Sunday when we have the expo, people are like, they're wowed, they're impressed. Oh my gosh, I didn't know all this existed for a bass fishing tournament, because it's a pretty common question. How do you participate in a bass fishing tournament unless you're on the water? So we're showing the events on our Jumbotron and on our screen. So we have all the same components that you would have at any other festival. It's just geared towards fishing.
You kind of mentioned a little bit of that, and that was going to be my next question, the expo, but also this Bassmaster Her workshop I was reading a little bit about too. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking. The past several years, we've really been trying to make a concerted effort to increase female participation in the sport. So on Saturday, the 23rd, starting at 9:30 at the Loggers Baseball Stadium, that's where our weigh-in is, we're going to have a series of seminars, and we'll bring in well-known female anglers that have dominated the sport over the years, and they'll be talking to women and really anyone who wants to participate, how you get involved, how you can potentially get sponsorship. We'll do a skills seminar, how to cast, getting familiar with a bass boat, behind the scenes in the industry, improving your accuracy, all the fundamentals sometimes where that girl out there may be saying, that looks fun, I just don't know how to get started. this is the perfect opportunity for really all ages. For females who are interested in getting into what is obviously a male-dominated sport. So we're trying to break that barrier because the fish don't care,
right.
And it should be accessible to everyone. So we just want to kind of help that.
So as you mentioned, accessible to everybody. So can anybody come by to the expo and that cost or anything related to that?
Great question. Everything that we do is free of charge. The Bassmaster program does have I think it's a $25 fee because it comes with lunch and you get goodies, you get notebooks and hats and I think a tote. But if you just want to come out and see the weigh-in, today's Thursday. It actually starts today at 3:00, and Friday at 3. It's all free. Saturday and Sunday is when the expo is open at noon. That's all free. If you want to go out on the latest and greatest boats, our sponsors will be set up there giving free boat demos. Toyota's set up there showing off their cars, the newest trucks. So we'll have merchandise, obviously, for sale, and there'll be food and beer. I'm told that's popular in this part of the country. So all that will be for sale. But no, everything we do is free. And if people have questions, want to see a schedule, want to follow what's going on, Bassmaster.com, our website, is a one-stop shop. It has all the information. Just click on the name of the tournament at the top, and there's an attend link, and it'll have all the info.
So, Eric, how do you go about selecting the proper site for these tournaments? And what was it about La Crosse that kind of appealed to you guys to host an event there?
Yeah, that's a very common question that we get. You know, we're the Elite Series, so Elite. It's the best of the best that's out there. We are not a qualifying circuit. There are other tournament circuits out there. I'm sorry, we're a qualifying circuit. We're not an invitational. So you have to compete at a certain level in order to stay on the circuit. So this is our last event. We're going to be saying goodbye, and it's going to be tough to some anglers who aren't going to requalify. But because they are the best of the best, we need to move around the country to different bodies of water. So we're not always we get so many questions. Why are you guys always in the South? We're in Wisconsin. We go to New York. We were just in Michigan. We're on large lakes. We're on river systems. Like I said, in order to call yourself the best, you have to be able to navigate all the different water systems out there. Specifically, what the anglers like about La Crosse is the Mississippi. They're fishing pools 7, 8, and 9. I mean, there's going to be drama on the water. Do you stay close to where we're launching right in La Crosse, or do you gamble and lock through and try to make a little bit of a run? So that all comes into play, and that's going to affect their strategy. So La Crosse and the area offers us a diversity of fishing in this specific area. Also, the fans are great up here. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it's hot in most of the country. The weather is beautiful. We lucked out. There's no rain. It's a great way for us to wrap up a 9 event season right here on La Crosse.
So, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe you've been with Bassmaster since 2003, is what I saw online. So, what are some of the biggest changes you have seen maybe in the fishing tournament world since 2003 to where we're at right now?
You know, the circuit has really changed. Like all sports, I'm a big sports fan. I follow all the major baseball, basketball, football, soccer, and there's always advancements. And the boats have obviously changed significantly since the start. The go-to answer is going to be the technology. There's always been technology on these boats. Forward-facing sonar is the big topic right now. How much of it should be used? Is it changing the game? But, I mean, since I've been involved in early 2000s, there's always been that type of system. But it continues to improve, and it continues to evolve. And some might say it's ask that question, like I just said, is it something that should be part of the sport? Look at baseball. Look at how bats have evolved. Look at how football is finally evolving with the first down and the use of technology as opposed to relying on refs or umpires as much. So just like those sports, we are continuing to evolve as well. The other big difference that we see flat out is that the individual anglers, because of social media, have become more stars on their own. We provide the platform through our website, through our television networks, but with the advancement of social media, all the anglers have the opportunity to be their own brand and have their own following. Some of these anglers they're pushing 7 figures in terms of followers and views, and that's great. That's absolutely what should be happening. I mean, fishing is an extremely popular sport. In my time, I've seen it become a college sport. I've seen it become a high school sport. There are people who don't believe me when I say that that's the case. It's a scholarship sport. We started a high school combine modeled after the NFL combine, where we will have hundreds of college coaches come and watch the young students, young anglers, compete and give them scholarships right there on the spot. So it's really becoming more of a mainstream sport, and that's been our goal all along.
And that kind of answers, another question, because I remember as a youngster hearing that stuff. I mean, man, I wish I was born later, because I had my B.A.S.S membership card in my tackle box. I thought I wanted to be a pro fisherman, watching Kevin Van Dam at the Bassmaster Classic, Bill Dance and all that too. But you mentioned the social media aspect. I mean, you're right, because the athletes, I feel like we know more of these competitors than we did probably 20 or so years ago.
We know as much as they're willing to put out, and a lot of them are willing to put out information about themselves, and that's great. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Sponsorship is key in a lot of sports. Us, obviously, golf, sports where you're not necessarily on a large team. So sponsors want to see the people that they are investing in market themselves, and the platforms are there. There's an older mentality, not necessarily age, but just a mentality where I just want to go out there and fish. And that's great, but that's a tough mentality, because you might not get the same sponsorship, which allows you to compete in the sport. You don't necessarily have to be at the top of your game from a competition standpoint in order to be the most popular. And that's something that some people have a challenging time digesting, that mentality. But if you look at some of our most popular anglers, they're not necessarily the ones that are winning all the tournaments. They're the ones that know how to market themselves via social media and also explain what they're doing. And that's key to our shows. Anglers that are walking the fans through how they're fishing, what they're using, what baits they're using, how they're using forward-facing sonar, because people watch the shows to learn. They want to know what to do. The people here locally say, hey, that's where I fish. I want to go out there and fish where they are. People nationally want to know what technique they're using on a river system. So the anglers that have mastered the craft of talking the fans through what they're doing ultimately become the most popular.
Yeah, I mean, because I remember my younger days watching it, and I'm like, okay, he's using that. Well, then I'm going to go try using that at my local, watering spot and such too. So, and it's a very this Bassmaster Elite tournament. It's for maybe people who don't follow it too much. It's pretty competitive, right? I mean, these guys in the water are very competitive.
Extremely competitive. It is very competitive. I've worked in other sports as well. And that's probably one of the things that caught me off guard at the beginning. I'm like, fishing. And I'm not going to lie. When I was first exposed to it at the competitive level behind the scenes, I'm like, how competitive it's going to be. How cutthroat is it going to be? I've stayed for a couple decades now because I'm a sports fan and I like competition. I like being behind the scenes, but I like seeing the strategy. It's a game of skill, not a game of chance. And that comes to fruition more so at this event than others because it is our final event of the year. This event is very unique because we're going to have a standalone winner who wins this specific tournament. But because we're wrapping up our season, we're also going to have the Angler of the Year crowned at this event. And a lot of people feel that is more coveted, a more coveted prize than the Bassmaster Classic because it represents the angler who is the most consistent. We're going to crown the Rookie of the Year. We're talking about the youth movement. So there are a lot of people who are like, what is becoming of the young guys, the young anglers who actually made the Elite Series because they want to be, the kids in high school and college want to be those rookies. And I mean, so they're watching their style. But that competition, that fierceness is really going to come to play, strategy. They're going to be paying attention to what the other guys are doing and trying to see how they can one-up them. And it's great that we're able to bring that message home via television and all of our social channels with our camera crew.
Eric, thank you so much for joining us here and chatting about this. I mean, this sounds like an event, if anybody's listening right now, to go catch that. I'm planning on coming over and watching some of the weigh-ins too, just because it's kind of rare to have something like this in our neck of the woods. So thank you so much for joining us and getting to know a little bit more about this awesome event, sir.
Thank you very much for having me on. And like I said earlier, if anyone has questions, just go to Bassmaster.com.
Before we wrap up this episode of Tailgate Outdoors, deer hunters, a quick reminder in case you forgot this week, those antlerless tags went on sale for hunting season. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, or you forgot, or maybe you want to get an extra one, head to gowild.wi.gov to get your antlerless deer tags. Or you can still go to a service station and kind of do it old school that way too. But the easiest and the quickest way, no doubt, is going online at gowild.wi.gov. And depending on the area, the zone, the county, or remember now this year too, we've got some DMUs, deer management units. So head to the Wisconsin DNR website to see the area that you go deer hunting and see if maybe you are in one of those deer management units now, or maybe it's still kind of the same from the last for the last few years and such. So check out that map just to double check to make sure that maybe you are now in a deer management unit. So when you go get that antlerless tag, that you select the right area, and honestly too, to see if there's any tags left. I know I logged on Monday morning right away, and I was like 15 minutes early in line, and I was still like number 9,000 something waiting to get a tag. So I was able to get my antlerless tag, but I know some areas they sold out right away. So make sure you go and check online to see if there's any available and to get your antlerless tags for this season. And reminder too, it could be for bow hunting or rifle hunting. But that's going to do it for us on this episode of Tailgate Outdoors. Reminder, if you ever miss an episode or you want to re-listen or you want to catch up, or even better yet, you want to share with a friend or a family member, it is available in podcast form wherever you listen to your podcasts. Plus, it's available as part of the Man Cave podcast. So get outside, be safe, take a kiddo outside, take a kiddo outdoors. Best of luck, and we'll talk to you on the next episode of Tailgate Outdoors.